officer in 2020. Among most of the Fortune 500 corporations in the world, only 7.4% of 37 chief executive officers were women. Let's go into politics. While women's representation in parliament has more than doubled globally, it has still not crossed the barriers of 25% of parliamentary seats in 2020. This shows you a lot. 25 years since the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, progress towards equal power and equal rights for women, it still remains elusive. No country in the world has achieved gender equality, and the COVID-19 crisis has threatened to erode the limited gains that have been made over time. So this shows you a lot. For women, we've come far, quite correct, but we still have a lot to be done. And it's why I've said and I've decided that this speech will be dedicated to admonishing us to do it afraid. More women would have to take action, do things, take risks, you know. In December of 1920, Amelia Earhart paid to go on her first plane ride. The experience lasted only 10 minutes, but then it changed the direction of her life. Amelia was determined to be a pilot. It didn't matter to her that there were only a few women in the field of aviation at that time. This is 1920. Through hard work and challenging conditions, she developed her skills. While other female pilots feared the long journey across the transatlantic, her determination led her to be the first woman to fly solo. The confidence she possessed was one of her greatest strengths, and this led her to set many records. So with these facts in mind, and these tales and these statistics that I've outlined today, my intent today is to admonish everyone again to do it afraid. Already in the world, cultural and religious factors are limiting the way or at the pace at which women accomplish things. You go around you, even in your places of work, in your schools, you feel the sense of bias towards women. I'm sorry again, men, but I see that men are present today. There's a sense of bias. I would say it in church, in our religious institutions, everywhere we go, and even our places of work, there's already that limiting factor. But it now boils down to you, your individual resolve, to dream big. Not only to dream big, to accomplish things, to do things. So briefly, I've outlined some few points on how to do things afraid and accomplish our goals as women. Number one, I'll say you should build your self-confidence. Self-confidence will embolden you to go for what you want, to put in that application, to approach that person who can help you, to apply for that job, to apply to that school, to apply for that scholarship. Self-confidence will embolden you to do that. I believe you should focus on your strengths and communicate it convincingly. Radiate happiness. Your outward behavior can change your inner feelings. A lot of people are attracted mostly to people who smile. Most people who are confident. You see the way you carry yourself. You're smiling, you're laughing. You feel it looks like, oh, this person knows what she's doing. That's radiating self-confidence, and that way you're able to go for your goals. You're able to convince people to help you. Another point I'll say is find your people. We all have people around us, who help us to be better at what we do. By finding your people, I'll say, is finding your community. That's why I'm happy about the Women Tech Makers group. If you have a group like this challenging you to accomplish your goals in technology, accomplish your personal goals in wherever it is that you find yourself, it helps you to move forward. No matter what stage you are in your career, a community always helps you. It's crucial. Surround yourself with others who are doing it. Ask for help. Don't get stuck in your mind and do a lot of research. Ask questions. I'm happy there's a networking session today where we get to talk to each other, collect telephone numbers, ask valuable questions that will help us. It's very key. Another point I'll say is make fear your personal force. We're all afraid of something. A lot of times it's even the little things, there's fear, but let it be your driving force. Don't let it stop you. You're applying for a job, you're thinking in your mind, would they select me? Or you're applying for a scholarship, would I make it? The idea is that fear should push you to do it and do it better. I'll say again, you have to be okay with starting small and doing not okay in the beginning. So you have to condition your mind. Okay, I'm doing this. I might not be perfect, but I'm fine. Even if I fail, I'll do it again. Anybody? Has anyone experienced this before? Has anyone experienced? Yeah, I can see a lot of hands. So you have to be okay with starting small and being not good at first. All right. You have to be okay with doing that because that's life and that's adult. You do it, you fail, you do it again, and you do it again until you get better at it. If you wait to get it perfect, if you wait to get it perfectly, you will never get it done. That one is for sure. I know a lot of people who think and think and think over one situation. People brood over situations over and over again. That should not be the case. You should be able to say, I'll do it. It's not perfect, it's not 100%, but I'm going to do it and I will do it. I'll do it at this the stage that I'm in, and I will go into whatever it is I'm doing. Lastly, I want to admonish us to dream big and reach for the stars. Some people have I believe like your community will help you um, to dream. I don't know how to put it now. A lot of us have dreams. For instance, here when we Google tech makers, or you have dreams or to be someday work with Google, or someday do a project for Google. Our dreams are valid, is what I'm saying. It's as far as your eyes can see. It's as far as your eyes can see. So dream big, keep dreaming and dreaming. Um, as I said before, cultural factors, religious factors have already have limited us already, but we can do it if only we try. Thank you very much.
Put your hands together for her. That was really, really awesome. Keep clapping if you get something. Thank you. Wow. Dream big. Your dream is valid. It might not really make sense to you right now, but keep dreaming, keep doing it. Can you hear me? Okay, keep doing all the hard work, keep working. Your dreams are indeed valid. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for that. That was really powerful. That was awesome. And I'm glad that you all are going to be part of this amazing community as well. That will help you grow and achieve your dreams. As long as you keep putting in the work, putting in the effort, and definitely going to realize very well. Thank you so much. Next, we have our speaker. She was supposed to be here in person, but then she got a job and had to relocate. So we'll play as usual. She'll be online with us to answer our questions. So at the cost of the where was this? So really because of her if you have any questions, please just note it. So we'll take all questions, right? Take it. Sorry about that. Trying to set it up. Trying to
Good day, everyone. You're welcome to this event. I would love to do this in person, but a commitment came up in Lagos. I had to travel down to My name is Fatima Modupe Bello. I'm a software developer at Hardcore Biometric Systems. I've been in this tech space as a front end developer for 3 years and counting. In the past years, I've done lots of boot camps to improve on my skills while learning all by myself. As much as I've always strived to grow exceptionally in my tech skills, I've also been passively involved in the tech community because I love the community. While growing in my career, I've always loved to take strategic and healthy steps to building my skills as a front end developer because I love excellence and I love what I do as a front end developer. And in this might, I'm always eager to put anyone through that is trying to take this career path of becoming a front end developer. My hobbies include good music, sport activities, and you can find me on Techity everywhere. My portfolio is techity.netlify.app. On my GitHub and Twitter, you can find me as my handle is Techity, and then on LinkedIn, you can see my LinkedIn link below. That is enough about me. So today we're going to be talking about how to keep building your career in tech. We're going to be talking about building your career in tech. So, first of all, when you are building your career in in the tech space, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing this? There are many reasons why people do stuff, right? So you want to know the reason why you actually want to be a developer. For me, while growing up, I've always had options. Sometimes I'm like database administrator. If nowadays, even quite easy. You see people a lot that want to kind of put you through and explain stuff to you. So sometimes I'll be like, okay, I didn't really know my niche. So I had to like, first of all, know the reason why I wanted to be a software developer. What helped me to understand um what I wanted to do in the tech space. One thing that helped me to understand it was my personal attributes. Like, what do I love personally? What do I love to do? What do I love to see? I harnessed all these things and it helped me to really buttress the point that I wanted to be a software developer. So I didn't just I'm not just a software developer like by chance. I After so much dabbling around a lot of stuff, I ended up making up my mind that this is what I was going to do. So these are four things you would want to know that will help you to push your career as a software developer. First of all, you have to find an entry niche. Then you also have to put up a good and true online presence and then follow up with tech trends. You wouldn't want to be a loner. Then thirdly, you would want to know how to source for tech jobs. And finally, you have to keep a habit of improving on your tech skills. First of all, how to find an entry niche. If you go to this link, it will help you to know the different fields in tech and help you to understand what each of them entails. So if you want to be a software developer, if you want to be a if you want to be in the tech space, if you want to be in the tech space, you'd definitely want to have a niche. If not, like, you keep dabbling around a lot of stuff and you keep wasting time. Whenever you do not understand some things, just try to ask questions. I ask questions a lot. Try to ask questions from people that have gone ahead of you and be like, okay, what am I supposed to know as a this? What am I supposed to know as a this? What don't I know? Okay, and you know. So when you want, like, personally, I really don't like when people don't understand what they want to focus on. I really don't like, I understand it's okay, it's really okay to be quite confused at first, but personally I like it when people understand what they are doing in the tech space, and so people don't come around and like get you confused, and stuff like that. So there are there are many fields in the tech space. There are data scientists, there are software developers, product managers, and the likes, network engineers, network security engineers, DevOps, DevSecOps, and there are a lot of stuff. So you want to know which of them you want to be. For me, I'm a software developer and I major in front end development. I've met software developers that don't even really know what front end developers do. They're like, okay, you're a front end developer. How much of Figma do you know? No, 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 no. Figma is for product designers. Do you get? And I've met people that they're like, okay, you're a front end developer. When you are done learning JavaScript, I hope you are going to pick up React Native immediately. And I'm like, no, 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 you're mixing these things up. So it's okay to understand, so that when people even ask you, you are quite sure of what you're saying. So find an entry niche, and then shoot. Once you are in the tech space, after finding an entry niche, you can scale up, like you can improve on yourself, learning other stuff, like learning Node.js as a front end developer. You can learn you can learn stuff that will help and enhance your knowledge, or enhance your skill as to what you are doing. Yeah, but for you to start, you have to find an entry niche, so you don't waste so much time being like knowing a lot of stuff and being master at none. So secondly, you want to put up a good and true online presence and follow up with tech trends. I said good and true because a good online presence will help you gain that gain that attention that you need. This is why you need it. Okay, there is this thing people say, it's not the best people that get the job, but people that actually put themselves out there for people to see. I know people that are very good at this skill, but they've not in any way, nobody else knows that they code except they themselves. And the disadvantage of this is you might not really get to meet other people that do stuff, and it might slow your growth. It might limit you in things you should know and fast. I hope you understand me. So you should put up a good and true online presence. True online presence mean you should not lie about who you are not. For God's sake, you there is packaging, yeah, there is packaging, but don't lie about what you are not. If you are in the tech space for just 2 years, put it out there. Understand where you are and strive to grow more. Don't say you are 8 years experienced. When people reach out to you and ask you questions about what someone in the field for 8 years should know, you begin to panic, and that's not healthy. It's not good enough for anyone that is trying to grow. And sometimes when you lie to yourself, people say imposter syndrome. Yeah, it would now come, like, it will get worse. So don't lie about who you are not, and try to like brand yourself properly. Put up a good and true online presence, and then follow up with tech trends. There are ways to brand yourself online. You have to have these 5 ingredients, as I call it, as a software developer: your portfolio, um which is not necessary, but if you're a front end developer, it is advisable you have a portfolio. Mine is techity okay, I changed it, techity.dev. I think I am supposed to update that here. Techity.dev. My GitHub is also there. I have my LinkedIn, I have my CV and my elevator pitch. So you wouldn't, whatever you have in your CV shouldn't be far from what should be in your LinkedIn, and your GitHub profile should have some projects that you've done. Now, going forward, I'll tell us how to have some projects on GitHub even without having a job yet. Because some people are starting off, they don't really have a job, but they need stuff to be on their GitHub profile. And then you have to have your portfolio. And then what I call elevator pitch is whenever someone say, tell me about yourself. I mean, this thing should come handy. Write it down. Don't just keep it in your head. Write it down. Write an elevator pitch for yourself, about 200 words. It's fine. It helps you a lot to understand your growth, to know the things you have learned, this to know the things you are learning, and to know going forward what you look out to, like, your prospects about yourself in your field. So you should also improve on your soft skill. So if you really don't know how to speak about yourself, nobody will help you do that. If you only know how to code, you most likely be winking in the dark. If people ask you to tell them about yourself, you probably not know what to say and how to even say it. So it is good enough that you improve on your soft skills, and this is one way to improve on your soft skills: attending meetups, speaking in public, trying to do stuff that make you interact with people. Don't just shy away from, I mean, literally, there's no point, there's no reason to be shy. I don't know, people are built differently, yeah, but when you improve your skill on something, it gets better. You should also follow up with tech trends. The way to follow up tech trend is your online presence. You should follow people that actually do the things you do, follow companies that do what you do, follow people that do what you do. You can see stuff that they post, you can follow up with tech trends, you can contribute, you can add your opinion, just interact. Don't just be all by yourself. So that is the second. And thirdly, know how to source for tech jobs. Now, there are many platforms you can source for tech jobs. There is no really code and fixed way to this, but to know that you are on the right track, you have to be doing these four things. You have to know the right online job platforms to source for tech jobs. I would recommend and talk about LinkedIn. Um, Maybe what in the question session, if anyone doesn't know how to, I'll put you through on how to, like, optimize your LinkedIn profile so that the kind of jobs you're looking for would be in your feeds and you always see them. I mean, not a lot of persons. Let me not assume everybody know how to do this. So secondly, you tell your friends and show them what you do for possible referrals. Tech is clicky. Don't be a loner. Tell your friends. Don't be the only person that know that you code. Tell people what you do. Show them what you do for possible referral. Put up stuff. You like me personally. I really don't put up everything. Like, I really don't put out myself all out, but to an extent, I'm not like in the dark. So let people know what you do, because they might have good links and they don't really know that you do this thing. They wouldn't send them to you. And sometimes referrals work more than just random job posts. So you no one first of all, you don't want to lie to yourself where you are at. You tell people, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm currently at. I'm at beginner level, advanced, mid-level, and all of that. So I think I've covered the third. And lastly, don't be idle at any given period of time. For me personally, at every time I work as a front-end developer, there is always something I'm doing to learn. Okay, recently I just completed the free code camp, boot camp, while working as a front-end developer. Yeah, I'm doing my job as a front-end developer, but in my spare time, I have the boot camp that keep helping me to, one, meet people, make me to know that, okay, you're right on track with what you are learning, and I am actually doing something. I'm not idle learning. Apart from what I do as in my job, I'm also like improving myself. I'm also building projects. If I can't build it on my own, I'll look for boot camps that will help me to keep me consistent with doing this stuff. So, like, while I was working, I did She Code Africa. While I was working, I did Fem Code Africa. While I was working, I started off with Tidal, but I couldn't complete it because it was basically for people that don't really have anything at hand. It was so much, I had to drop it. So, and currently I'm looking out for in the process of an application for an internship that would also make me not to be idle. So when you do these things, you meet people, you grow yourself, you improve, and while you are doing this, you are actually um being a better teammate where you work, because you are not like lagging behind, you are improving yourself. Most likely you might have a pay raise for not for improving on yourself. So you should know how to source for tech jobs, and then these are possible ways to, like, while sourcing for tech jobs, you should also not be idle, you should keep improving on yourself. So you should also I'll buttress on that fourth point. So while improving yourself, you should know what to do. You should know what to do. Okay, let me just use this three questions, these three power questions people say. What do you know? What can you do with what you know? What have you done with what you think you know? So first of all, you want to know what you know. Okay, I know HTML, CSS, JavaScript. What can you do with what you know? I can build components using React hooks, React function. I can build React functional components. I can build JavaScript functions. I can basically, this is what I can do. I can build a React app from scratch to finish. Yeah, I know you can do that. I can consume endpoints. I can work with backend and interact with the data. I can do this, I can do that. Yeah, so now what have you done with what you think you know? Not until you do something with what you think you know. Trust me, you've not finally known that thing, because there is the there is this there is this extra that comes with experience, that comes with practicing. So you should not despise that part of practicing, no matter how little. There are many ways to learn. People learn differently, so know exactly how best is it for you to learn. Like for me personally, I ask questions a lot. When I'm done asking questions, because I don't want to do things that are not the norm, that are not the way I should do them, so I'm sure that I'm doing the right thing. I ask questions a lot. I also, for me, the way I learn, if I'm learning something totally new, I go with video tutorials. In fact, I go as much as asking senior friends that, okay, I want to learn this stuff. Can you point me to best resources so I don't waste time? So I go with tutorial videos. But once I know this thing that I supposed to, that I have learned, I know the basics, I go with documentation. That works for me. I also do lots of boot camps because it keeps me consistent. So just know your niche, know how to put yourself out there, and keep improving on yourself. Basically, this is the general rudiments, the general ingredients you should want to be doing to build your career in the tech space. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any question. If you do have any question, please shoot. And thank you very much.
Hello? Yeah, I can't hear anybody. I'm trying to refresh, but I don't think my network too.
Hi everyone, my name is Kim Swennen and I'm a senior software engineer at Google. This is pre-recorded, but presumably I'm going to be around for questions, which would be great. And I wanted to tell you a little bit today about my career journey, where I went from being a performance to being a software engineer. And so, first of all, I will tell you a little bit about my life in Hollywood. So I was an actor in Los Angeles, and I started with an undergraduate degree in theater studies from Yale. Which I got in 2003. And then I went on to move to London to get a master's in classical acting, so specializing in Shakespeare in 2005. And after that, I moved to Los Angeles with the goal of being a full-time actor on stage and screen. Knew it was going to be challenging, followed the steps over years in terms of getting an agent and networking and going and auditioning. And I'm very, very blessed that I got to be on television a number of times on TV shows like True Blood, Mad Men, Criminal Minds, to be on television, Grey's Anatomy. You a little bit to name is Kim Swennen, and I'm a senior software engineer at Google. This is pre-recorded, but presumably I'm going to be around for questions, which would be great. And I wanted to tell you a little bit today about my going to be around for questions, which would be great. And I wanted to tell you a little bit today Hi everyone, my name is Kim Swennen, and I'm a senior software engineer at Google. This is pre-recorded, but presumably I'm going to be around for questions, which would be great. And I wanted to tell you a little bit today about my career journey, where I went from being in the performing arts to being a software engineer. And so first of all, I will tell you a little bit about my life in Hollywood. So I was an actor in Los Angeles, and I started with an undergraduate degree in theater studies from Yale, which I got in 2003. And then I went on to move to London to get a master's in classical acting, so specializing in Shakespeare in 2005. And after that, I moved to Los Angeles with the goal of being a full-time actor on stage and screen. Knew it was going to be challenging, followed the steps over years in terms of getting an agent and networking and going and auditioning. And I'm very, very blessed that I got to be on television a number of times on TV shows like True Blood, Mad Men, Criminal Minds, Grey's Anatomy, NCIS LA, and I cherish all of those days that I got to be on set. It was very fun, quite an adventure. But I started to realize when I turned 30 that there were some things about the industry that didn't quite sit with me in terms of a long-term career. And so some of these challenges were, for example, we have this expression called hurry up and wait, where your call time is like 5:30 in the morning and you need to be in the makeup chair, and they quickly put your makeup on and make sure everything looks great, and then you go on set and you're ready to go. And then you wait for hours while they set up the camera and they do the adjustments and they do the focus. And I mean, a set is an incredible number of people all working together for this one product, this one goal, which is interestingly enough like engineering. But I realized that being 1 or 2 days on set or a week on set even was like exhilarating and fun and adventurous. But I realized that if I were series regular on a set for about 6 years and every day I was spending 12 to 14 hours sitting and waiting, that might be a real challenge for me. I also discovered, not that this should have been a surprise, which is why I put the question marks, is that acting is not a particularly stable career. There's a lot of rejection. There's every audition is basically another job interview. So there's there's a roller coaster in terms of success. And another point, which I note below, is success is actually relative. And I say a moving target because even somebody like Brad Pitt, or I don't know, name a famous actor, right? They are constantly concerned about, how do I stay relevant? How do I keep getting employed? How do I keep getting cast in the next movie? And so you can never quite sit and rest in that profession. And there's always somewhere higher for you to aim. And that to me also felt stressful. And then finally, and this was something probably pretty unique to me, in that I loved math in middle school, high school. I even did some science in college, undergraduate. Even though I majored in theater, I took some math, I took physics, I took some computer science, which I'll talk about in a bit. But the reason why is that I loved that feeling of problem solving. I loved the analytical, logical deduction. And most of all, I really loved feeling like I had the right answer. And getting an A was important to me. It's one of those students. And so one thing I really enjoyed about math was that you have a right answer, right? There's a right and a wrong. And that is absolutely not something that you will find in acting. And in fact, that in some ways held me back as an actor, because I was constantly looking for, what is the right way to do this? How am I supposed to say this line? And in fact, what's most beautiful about it is, what is the impersonal interpretation you want to give to the role? What is your unique take on it? And so I realized that at 30 that, I missed that. I missed the problem solving. I missed the analytical deduction side of things. And so I started to think, okay, I think I want to change careers. What do I do? Right? This is the next big question. So talking a little bit about my transition into STEM, and yes, the big question on my mind at the time, what am I going to do? I figured I would probably have to go back to school to get another degree, probably a master's degree, but I didn't know what that would be in. I considered teaching, because that's what I did for my day job as an actor. I was a math tutor. So teaching was on the table, but then I'd also dabbled in some web design. And I remembered that I took this course as an undergraduate in college in coding, and I remember I really enjoyed it, in computer science more broadly. And I remembered how much I really liked that, and I resonated with it. But even at the time, I knew I wanted to major in theater, but I thought, could I double major? Maybe computer science is something that I could get interested in. And even at the time, so we're talking at 19, 20, in my head, I was already too old to embark on a new journey into coding, into computer science, into engineering, because I had a stereotype, and I'll talk about this more later, but I had this impression that if somebody was a good engineer, it meant that they had been doing it since they were 8. right? To me, an engineer was somebody who took apart their computer and put it back together again for fun, or who built a compiler in their spare time. And you know, I liked going to rehearsals. I liked seeing my friends. I liked being creative. And so in my head, I was like, well, I don't fit the profile of what an engineer is. And so I don't, it doesn't seem right to me to like change tacks and like embark on this. So I decided not to at the time. I'll cut to a year later and I'm 30 and I'm thinking, luckily, I got a lot of encouragement from friends and family, telling me that, you know, it's totally accessible to you. You are capable. Yes, it'll be hard work, but it's possible. So I decided to go for it. And I might have decided to go for it, but I still needed to sort of find a school that would accept me for further education. So I applied to a number of schools, some of them in the Los Angeles area where I lived and some of them across the country. And I got a not insignificant number of responses back that were very kind, but were also sort of like, well, it's great that you're doing that. But you have a degree in the arts, and so we're not going to be able to help you. That being said, I, again, as an actor, don't take no for an answer, so I learned to push. And I followed up with the vice chair of the graduate department at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. And he took a meeting with me, and I basically explained to him, look, I know that I'm not a traditional candidate. What I'm asking for from you is to help me understand what I need to do in order to become a competitive applicant for your program. I will go audit classes. I will go learn basic material as much as I can in preparation. I just need you to help guide me in terms of a roadmap. And he did. So he basically said, you need to take these courses from from the open enrollment in the summer. You need to ace them. You need to get letters of recommendation from those professors. He gave me a whole list, which was wonderful. And so I ended up at UCLA for my master's degree. But in the year that I was applying, I was auditing courses, undergraduate courses. And by auditing, I just mean that I wasn't an official undergraduate student, but I was doing all the projects, I was doing all the exams, I was doing all the tests. So that was incredibly useful and helpful. And I highly recommend whenever you can to go back to the basics and build up that foundation, because it was invaluable for my master's degree. So I then spent 2 years doing the master's, and while I was doing the master's, I had 2 internships, one at Symantec, which is the security company, and one at LinkedIn, which I'm assuming you've heard of. But if not, it's, how would you describe it? I guess social media for business? I'm not their PR person. Won't do a good job. But I did internships with both of those companies. And again, I highly recommend internships as well, because I learned so much just from so many different aspects of what it meant to engineer and what it meant to do, to apply computer science to real world problems by having an internship as opposed to just doing class projects. It's a very different field to learn in, and it was incredibly helpful. So then, come October of my final year, I graduate the next June. They have the career fair, they start interviewing for full-time employment. And Google crossed my mind, but I thought, I've heard about the Google interview. I know how hard it is, and I know Google hires the smartest people in the world who have been engineers forever, in my head. And so clearly that doesn't make any sense for me to even apply to Google. Again, thank goodness, I had friends and family convince me otherwise. Who basically said to me, first of all, you don't know that, so don't say no to yourself before you've even walked in the door. And what's the worst that could happen? So you have a practice interview if they say no, right? It's good experience. You'll learn something from it. All very good points. So I decided to apply to interview at Google. And to prepare, I did some mock interviews. Those are very helpful. I used some coding exercises that I found in some books and online. There's some great resources available to prepare for tech interviews. And then the first step was a phone screen where it was a technical phone screen. So I was talking to an engineer and working through a problem over the phone. And then if you get through the phone screen, there are 5 in-person interviews on site at the Google campus. And it's a very long day. And I was pretty intimidated by it. And And I will share with you one of the best pieces of advice that I got about interviewing, and not just tech interview, just interviewing in general. And it was, as much as you can, try to think of your interviewer not as judge, jury, and executioner, right? Like the person who is going to decide your fate because they know the answer and they're judging whether you figure it out or not. It's too much pressure, for one thing, and it detracts from part of what they're trying to understand is how you would be as a colleague, right? Because if you are hired, this could be a colleague of yours. And so that's what was incredibly helpful, was someone advising me to say, go into it and think of it as a collaboration, as you're going to be working on this problem together. And in fact, my final interviewer of the day, bless her, came in, and the first words out of her mouth were, let's code together. And it totally fit in with the mind frame that I'd been trying to work on. And we ended up having a blast. I mean, we stayed over to try to finish the problem, and it really felt like a collaboration. She would say, oh, okay, I like how you did that. I'm wondering, so what if we tried this? And she was genuinely working through what I had proposed. So I really valued that, and I think it can be helpful to think of an interview in that light. And then a couple of weeks later, Google made me an offer. I cried a lot. I was very excited, over the moon to go work there. And so I'll tell you a little bit about what my work has been at Google. It's been 7.5 years, roughly, since I've been here. So I started off in ads, and never would have thought that I would work on ads. Ads is not something that I'm particularly engaged with as a user or aware of, and it turns out to have been a really great learning experience, because I learned some of the best practices. I learned really robust, resilient coding techniques, how to deal in large, scalable systems. A lot of it was just a really great learning experience. And then after a little while, I transferred to YouTube. And this was a totally different experience because, I use YouTube, right? I know what that means. And so it was fun to have more engagement with a user-based product. Or something that I could say to people on the street, like, hey, I work on YouTube. And they'd be like, oh, I use YouTube. So that's always fun. And I specifically worked on channel subscriptions. So when you hit the big red subscribe button, some of my code probably still runs. So I was on YouTube for about 4.5 years. And both of those teams I was in Los Angeles, in the LA office. And then I transferred right before the pandemic to Google Arts and Culture, which is based in both Paris and London. And I am now based in the London office. And I don't know if any of you have heard of the site or the mobile app. I hope you have, because it's really cool. But it's a platform where we try to help democratize and make freely accessible the world's art and culture. And so we work with partner institutions like museums to help them digitize their artwork and put it on the internet. And we have curated virtual exhibits for people to be able to explore. You can see the Mona Lisa up close and just like zoom in. As an example, right? We have this kinds of ability to engage with art in fun and interesting ways. And so one example is Blob Opera, which if you go to the site, you'll see where you can create opera by dragging these blobs and helping them sing, and it's all machine learning based. We also had Art Selfie, which was a feature that went kind of viral. It was fun, where you take a picture of yourself and it matches you with a piece of art that looks like you. So that's been my experience at Google. I've loved working here. It is genuinely, in my mind, in my experience, a great company to work for. And the pictures actually me at orientation in Mountain View, my first day 7.5 years ago, with the beanie. They do give you the hat with the little propeller top. So the last thing I wanted to do is share with you some of the lessons that I've learned along the way in this career transition. So for one thing, I have a lot of imposter syndrome. And I share it openly because I've discovered that A, it's quite normal, and B, it's helpful the more people share that they have it, because then other people who are uncomfortable or feel stigmatized by it sort of don't feel quite as much pressure. And it turns out that it's nice because at Google we talk about it quite openly. I mean, there's some people I've worked with who I think, oh gosh, they have all the answers. Like they knew they wanted to be an engineer at 5, and and they know every in and out of this system, and then they'll say to me like, oh yeah, I have a lot of imposter syndrome too. And oh really? So it's great. I mean, I think it's very helpful to talk about it. And I think the things to remember about imposter syndrome are, One, it's not necessarily the truth. I mean, that voice in my head telling me, like the dog there, I have no idea what I'm doing. I've learned I have to look at objective metrics of my performance. So like performance reviews or feedback from my manager to really counteract what that voice might be telling me and go, no, actually it turns out that I'm apparently doing quite well as an engineer. So maybe the voice is not accurate. So that's one thing. And on top of it, I've also learned to value, to a certain extent, the feeling of feeling intimidated or feeling challenged or sometimes even feeling frustrated, because it means that I'm learning something new, right? It means that my life as an engineer is never boring because I'm constantly learning something new, I'm challenging myself, I'm growing. And so in a way, it's a feeling to be embraced. It'd be pretty bored if you just always knew what to do all the time and just executed thoughtlessly, right? Well, I think. I also learned that breaking things is pretty commonplace. Not that you should aim to do it, but just that we are human writing code. And so, of course, as humans, we will make mistakes. There will be bugs. Things will break. And it turns out the important thing is to actually learn something from it, because then it becomes part of the iteration cycle. Then it becomes, I can make this product better, this feature better, because I've learned something about how it doesn't work well. So it actually is a very valuable process as long as it's approached in that way as like a learning opportunity. And it's quite nice. At Google, we have what's called a no blame culture. So no one's going to point a finger at you and go, you broke it, right? The goal is that we all learn together, like, how can we make the system better? What did we just learn? Curiosity, super important. Ask questions. I had a friend when I started at Google early on who passed me in the hall and he goes, are you asking questions? And I said, yeah. And he goes, you're not asking enough questions. I was like, how do you know? He wasn't even on my team. And his point was that like people generally don't ask enough questions. And so I found that incredibly helpful and you know, an encouragement to like dig deep, go try to understand things at the source, try to understand the patterns and the theory behind it. And obviously you can fall down rabbit holes and lose productivity that way. So there's a line there somewhere. But also a great piece of advice I got when I started at Google, which was when you ask people questions, it can be hard on them, right? Because of context switching. Because if they're working on something and then you come in and you say, hey, I have a quick question. And they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and I'm going to answer your question and I'm going to go back to what I'm doing. And if you do it really frequently, that's when it's hard for that person because they're not able to be productive. They're just going back and forth. And so I got a great piece of advice, which was batch your questions. So rather than ask a question every 3 minutes, collect 10 questions and then ask that person, hey, could I have 30 minutes of your time in a meeting to ask a bunch of questions that I've gathered together? And that's actually a lot less onerous for them because then they can set aside the time. They can do only one context switch. So anyway, I thought that was helpful advice. People want to help. I discovered this was heartening and lovely to find out. I've had people help me all along this journey and they wouldn't have known that I needed help unless I'd asked for it. And so I think it's important to ask for help, ask for advice, find a mentor, right? People want to share what they've learned. People want to be helpful. People want to pass it on. And so I think it's important to put yourself out there and say, I'd like some help. I need some help. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised if you haven't done it before at how helpful people want to be. And then finally, I mentioned stereotypes before, but I've become aware, ironically, coming from the media, from film and television into engineering, how many stereotypes there are in the media about engineering. So, you know, it seems like oftentimes if you portray a scientist, it's a white man in a lab coat, right, as an example. And I've realized how damaging those stereotypes can be, particularly to young people, because they see these images and they don't see themselves represented in a field like software engineering or many STEM fields. And so they think, well, I guess I don't fit in that world because I don't look like that. So it's really important to start to challenge those and question whatever you might have in your head in terms of like, you know, this is what a software engineer looks like. This is what a software engineer does. All of that is flexible. There's an incredible amount of diversity at Google, both in people's backgrounds and their interests and their passions and their education. And thank goodness, because that level of diversity makes for a wonderfully rich community, but also just for solving hard problems and making sure you address the needs of all of your users, you need all of those voices and all of those ideas and all of those backgrounds at the table. So I would say start to question those stereotypes, especially if you have young people around you who are kids who are interested in science. Try to help them debunk those stereotypes and identify them and help see themselves in the field. And that's it. So thank you so much. I'm really grateful to have been here, and I look forward to answering some of your questions. Hello. I don't actually see any questions for the host, so I'm going to sit here and smile until something happens. I wish I could interact with people, but I can't actually see anybody on or see any questions anywhere. So sorry if you're waiting to ask something.
Ask you those questions. Are we not muted? Hi, is she muted?
Nope, I can hear you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. So we have some questions for you. 3 of the participants have questions to ask you. So I'll just give them the mic now to talk to you.
Okay, great.
Awesome. All right. So
Okay. Hi Kim. Is it necessary for you to study a computer-related course in your university if you want to be a programmer or you want to go into tech?
You're saying, is it necessary to study computer science in university? Is that what you mean?
Or a computer-related course?
Yes. Before you can go into tech. That's the question.
That's a great question. So I actually have a friend who's a director of engineering at a big tech company. They're tech and entertainment. He is entirely self-taught. He doesn't even have a high school degree. So I don't think it's necessary to get a college degree. However, I think it's pretty rare to be able to self-teach yourself all of the concepts and everything else. I think he's sort of a rare case. I know of a lot of people who get into coding by taking sort of boot camps or taking very specialized courses in order to become programmers. I think it just kind of depends on what you want to focus on. I think if you want to mostly do web development, then I don't know that a computer science degree is necessarily, the way to go. But I'm mostly back-end development, so I do sort of server infrastructure, like heavier duty coding on a back end. And I think for me, the degree was important for two reasons. One, because I think that because my undergraduate was in the arts, I felt like I needed some kind of proof to employers that I was legitimate in terms of my studies of computer science. And I also know myself, and I know that I was going to do a lot better having a structure to my education rather than trying to do it on my own. I do better having a teacher giving assignments and learning progressively, and assigning reading every week. So that was the main reasons that I did it. But no, I don't think it is mandatory to have a degree in computer science. I think it's one of the ways to get there. It's a good question.
Thank you so much, Kim. So I'll just go to the next question. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, Tavish by name.
Oh, I think you got muted.
Go ahead.
There we go.
Sorry.
Okay, you said you came from an arts background, right? So I want to ask. You said you came from an art background. So I want to ask, how was it like switching from arts to computer science? Was it a kind of smooth one for you? Because most times people say they actually didn't study science, and it's very hard for them deciding what to do actually. So how was it like switching from arts to a computer science related course?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I'll be honest, I was very scared because it felt like it's not a traditional path. It's not something that is sort of laid out as like, yeah, people do that. They go from one career to a totally opposite career. So I was very scared and I was very determined. But there were no guarantees. I mean, I look back and I can tell the story and say I ended up at Google, but I mean, there were no guarantees of that when I started. I just was hoping I would get a job in some tech company somewhere. So it was scary. At the same time, that's why I mentioned like asking people for help, because I found that even though I was doing something a little different from what most people would do, I found that once I told people like, hey, I'm doing this thing and I'm really determined and it means a lot to me and I would love your help, like a lot of resources showed up in terms of like helping me forge that sort of different trajectory. And I would also say that I think it's a little unfair that people characterize arts and sciences as like opposites, even though I think I just said something to that effect. But like, people have said to me, oh my gosh, you're both right brain and left brain. And I'm like, well, I kind of hope we're all brained. So a lot of the skills that I learned as an actor actually served me in my job as an engineer. Mostly my communication skills is the biggest example, because as an engineer, like, it's not just coding. You've got, like I mentioned, you've got to work with a group of people. And so being able to communicate your idea and communicate well with others is like critical. So that's one example where like the skills I learned in one are absolutely applicable to the other. And even as an actor, I studied Shakespeare. Well, that's very analytical, actually. So a lot of the problem solving skills that I sort of had developed in college in computer science actually served me well as an actor. So I think it's useful to see it as a little more fluid than like this total 180. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much. So the final question. We have one more question for you.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, Kim. So I wanted to ask, because I saw on your slides that you pointed out sorry, just give me a minute.
That's okay.
Imposter syndrome. So you pointed that out and you said it was normal. So I wanted to ask how you navigated around that, because I'm in a space now, because I am into renewable energy and I am looking at, and then at the same time a machine learning engineer, and I'm looking at applying that to it. But then having a background in mechanical engineering and all of that, I find it hard. I'm kind of like struggling, although I've done a lot of learning in the machine learning space, but I find it hard to apply to opportunities because I am feeling very inept. I feel like I haven't gotten to that stage yet. So I want to know how you handle that in your um,
No, it's
career.
also a really good question. So, gosh, there are a couple things I want to say about that. So one is I still have imposter syndrome. I've been at Google 7.5 years, and I still question my ability as an engineer. And I'm a senior. I've been promoted twice, and so now a senior engineer. And I still kind of go, yeah, but I don't. There's so much I don't know, so I'm not really an engineer. So like, I think one of the reasons I share it is so that you know that like even people you look at in the fields that you want to be in and you go, gosh, they know everything, like they're so competent, they're so like, I'm never going to be at that level. They are also questioning their skills, even if they're not sharing it. They too sort of look around and go, oh man, other people know more than me, like I'm not sure if I belong here. So like, I think for one, it's good to normalize it, right? To know that it's a very normal feeling, and even people who seem to be at the top of their field are also like sort of questioning like, how did I get here, and do I deserve to be here? And um so that's the first thing. The other thing is, I think I mentioned like I didn't even apply to Google. My first thought when I was looking at like jobs to apply to full time after grad school, I very much assumed that there was no way Google would hire me, because there's even a book like how to get hired at Google that's all about how impossible it is to get hired at Google. Um, and so in my mind, it just sort of felt like, why bother, right? I'm not qualified for this. And so thank God I had people sort of convince me like there's no harm in trying, and throwing my hat in the ring. And I sort of discovered, oh, a lot of the barriers that I felt were coming from my own head, right? So, and I think they've even done studies that, don't quote me because I don't remember like the actual studies or anything, but I've heard that like women in particular tend to look at a job description and they'll go through the list of qualifications and they'll go, "Ooh, there's one of them there that I don't know if I quite fit, so maybe I shouldn't even apply." And apparently it's more likely that for a man we'll go through the list and go, oh, there's only one of them I don't great, I'm definitely going to apply. um, so I think it's a big part of it is just trying to push past that hurdle in ourselves, right, that might be holding us back, and questioning that sort of like, I don't know what I'm talking about. And believe me, I have had I had to do some machine. I don't do machine learning, and I've had to do machine learning at Google, and I have cried in the bathroom. I'm very honestly. But when I told that to my manager, because once I cried in front of my manager, which was a little embarrassing, but she was so supportive and understanding, and she said, "I will tell you that I have walked into the bathroom and come across one of the senior engineers crying about having to work in one of our complicated systems. So just know that it's very normal." Um, so that helped me a lot, just to kind of go, okay, yes, this is tough, but can I frame that as like, this is a good opportunity, this is like, this means that I'm challenging myself, I'm learning something new, I don't know it yet. I heard a great quote, I don't remember if I mentioned it in the talk, but I heard a great quote recently, I read it. It was like, somebody is only better at you than something because they've failed more times at it than you. And I thought that was a really great way to go, right, in order to be good at something, you have to start off by not being good at something and sort of slowly getting there. So anyway, all that to say that I'm like cheering you on. And I think you can totally do it. So keep going, and try to push past those voices, and don't let them get you down too much.
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much. So, would like you to have a feel of the audience. So, we just turn on the camera so you can just see the participants just
Oh,
for
that'd
a
be
minute
great.
or so.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, just give us a minute to set up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry. Is it like a follow-up question? Just switch it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hi, they're saying hi to you.
Oh, it's so wonderful to see you all. I hope you've had a great day.
Thank you so much for the awesome session. We really do appreciate you.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot. So from everyone, we are saying bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was wonderful to speak to you all today.
Awesome, awesome.
All right. Have a good one.
Have a great day ahead. Bye.
Bye.